Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to return to the state of Michigan. Supposed to be a very pretty place. I was there when I was very young but don't quite remember it. But we're going to do my third visit to probably one of the most well-known craft breweries from America. So we're going to go to Founders Brewing Company, and tonight we're having a taste of their Dark Penance. And this is an Imperial Black IPA. The Black IPA, of course, is a style that I've just been kind of getting used to recently, and I do really quite like it. And this is my very first taste of an Imperial Black IPA, so this should be really quite interesting. And this is a brewery who I know produce some pretty damn good dark beers, so it's a good place to actually start off with a Black IPA. I've reviewed the two Bastards beers before, which was the Dirty Bastard and the Backwoods Bastard. Scotch ales, very nice, worth checking out if you get the chance. And I know then that Founders Brewery are really good at their dark beers, so you do want to check these guys out if you get the chance. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual websites are in the video description below. The brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Founders. I will add more in the near future incidentally, and there's all the usual social media things for the channel down there, Facebook, Twitter and Untappd. Please support me through those, and please subscribe to the channel as well. And to my Michigan viewers, please do let me know some other Michigan breweries that you'd like me to have a look at, and I will see if I can get a hold of them either here in Sweden or across the water in Denmark. So anyway, to tell you about Founders Brewing Company. So this brewery was originally founded in 1997 as the Canal Street Brewing Company in Grand Rapids in Michigan, and it was founded by Mike Stevens and David Engbers, and the two were home brewing enthusiasts, but they'd only quite recently graduated from university, although they were both holding quite steady jobs. But they soon decided that they wanted to follow their passion of beer, and so they drew up a business plan, took out hefty loans, quit their jobs and founded the brewery that became Founders Brewing Company. So in the 1800s, several breweries had operated in this Canal Street area of Grand Rapids, and the area apparently is now called Monroe Avenue, but the original labels on the beers of this brewery were a black and white photo of the original Canal Street breweries with the word Founders on it, and thus the brewery quickly became known as the Founders Brewing Company. But in the early days, the brewery ran really close to becoming bankrupt because they were brewing kind of quite well balanced beers, but they really weren't kind of very flavour forward as the beers are these days. But at this point the brewery decided that they needed to take a kind of radical approach in their brewing, and this was when they changed their approach and produced the beers that they're now famous for, the big hoppy beers and the big malty beers as well. So this is where Founders Brewing Company really turned the corner. But the company philosophy is, we don't brew beer for the masses. Instead, our beers are crafted by a chosen few, a small cadre of renegades and rebels who enjoy beer that pushes the limits of what is commonly accepted in taste. In short, we make beer for people like us. But since the mid-2000s, the brewery's been growing quite substantially, and now they're producing about 340,000 barrels of beer per year, and their sales market is constantly growing. And on site at the brewery they've got a tap room which overlooks the brewing facilities, so you can have a look at the guys brewing some of the Founders beer. And they also throw an annual festival called Founders Fest in the street in front of the brewery, and this street, when this goes on, is closed down and blocked off, and there's a lot of food vendors and local music acts and things like that. So if you do find yourself in Michigan during the summer, go and check out the Founders Fest in Grand Rapids. So very interesting brewery. If you want to find out more, check out the brewery website. But just to list a few of the beers from these guys before we move on to their tasting, in the year-round range there's the All Day IPA, the Centennial IPA, the Pale Ale, the Porter and the Dirty Bastard. In the year-round draft range there's the Red Rye IPA, the Nitro Pale Ale and the Nitro Oatmeal Stout. In their seasonals there's Red Rye IPA, which is bottled. This is the January to April. There's the Rubaeus, which is a raspberry ale, which is from May to August, and there's also the Breakfast Stout, which is from October to December. They've also got a few speciality beers as well, and this one is a member of that range. And they've also got the Backstage series where they bottle some of the experimental beers from the tap room. These ones are really quite hard to get, and there's a number of limited edition ones that you will only find in the tap room in Grand Rapids as well. So anyway, that's enough about this beer, or enough about the brewery rather, so let's actually get on to this beer. So this one is an 8.9% black IPA. It's from the speciality series, like I told you. It's available only from October to December, and it's hopped with Chinook and Centennial hops, both from America, and it's got a malt base of Crystal and Midnight wheat malts. Apparently this is just, Midnight wheat malts are just black wheat malts, so this one should be a really quite nice beer for us to try. So I'll let you have a little quick look at the artwork on this one just before we crank it open. As I said at the start of the video, this is supposed to be a really damn good beer, rated at 98 on ratebeer.com, and as I always say, this website very rarely leads you wrong when it comes to craft beer. And as I always say, As I said at the start of the video, very interested to try my first Imperial Black IPA. So you can see the old woman in the kind of creepy mirror there. It's obviously, with the name Dark Penance, it's probably a reference to the kind of horror movie genre, if you like. But you can see there the little top label, and this is the founder's bottle cap there. The camera isn't quite focusing on that. I'll try and put it in a bit closer to you, but you can see basically just says Founders Brewing Company. So without further ado then, let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting here. Really excited for this one. So as you can see, a nice smoky opening there. My bottle cap has gone flying under the table, so I'll retrieve that later. But when you're pouring this one, you can actually smell a good bit of fruit coming off this beer. The Black IPA, of course, is a really quite interesting beer style. You always get the big, dark malt base on it, really quite dark and quite sweet, almost a bit like a kind of sweet stout, if you like, but on top of it, you get the IPA. It's a really interesting fusion of styles, so I'm very interested to see what the Imperial variety of this is like, but you can really smell some nice sweet and sweet citrus and tropical fruits coming off this beer without paying too much attention to it at the moment, of course. But as you can see, the beer has poured a really nice dark ebony rosewood colour, very attractive looking beer, solid finger and a half of a frothy beige tan head. Very attractive looking beer, like I said. No visible sediment actually, one or two big bubbles at the bottom of the glass, but quite a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head, but not as many as I've seen in some beer. It looks very smooth. If I shine the light over, it does have just a little bit of a ruby edge to it, but really not much at all. That beer is almost pitch black, looks very, very nice. So let's have a look at the aroma before we get stuck into this one. Smells really nice, this. As I said, these hoppy characteristics are coming out of this one in quite a big manner actually. So there's a bit of pine resin in this, and that's a characteristic of the Chinook. You can smell that when you sugar it up a little bit. Definite pine resin, a definite aromaticity out of this beer. But the most prominent component of the hops is definitely that grapefruity and citrusy note coming out of the beer. You get a bit of floral characters as well. As I said, that's from the Centennial hop. But there's a nice earthiness to this beer. The hops in this are coming out very, very nicely. A typical American hop aroma in this one. Just dipping my nose in the beer there. But yeah, underneath that, you can pick out some dark roasted malt. As I said, the midnight wheat malt that's in this is just supposed to be a very dark roasted black wheat malt almost. You can pick up a little bit of a roasted, kind of almost coffee-ish aroma coming out of this one, but there's a good bit of sweet caramel and chocolate coming out of this one, and that mixes quite well with the fruity characteristics of this beer. When you settle it down and just let it settle like this, that's when more of the malty flavours come out. But as I said, the main component of the aroma here really is the nice hoppy and the nice juicy hops, the citrus and floral characters, and there is a bit of aromatic-y and earthy character coming out of this beer too. Really typical elements of the Chinook and the Centennial coming out. So as I always say before you try the beers, give them a good smell. This one's got a really nice juicy fruit aroma, which is quite unusual for a black IPA. Usually there's a bit more of balance to it, but this one is really hop forward, but we're not going to complain about that. So anyway, let's get stuck into this beer then. This is the Dark Penance. I think it's a limited edition Imperial Black IPA from Founders Brewing Company in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Skål! Now that's really quite drinkable for an Imperial style beer. It's really nice. As I always say, you should sugar the beer around your mouth before you start dissecting the flavour too much. You can see the head, it's just thinning away to be a very thin foamy layer there, but there's a lot of flavour in this beer. First thing I'm noticing from it is that the hoppy characters, the floral aromatic hops in this, have this really interesting mix with the roasted malt in this beer. It works exceptionally well. Just on first impressions, really deserving of its rating on Rate Beer. 98 kind of goes without question. Very, very good beer. Yeah, that's really nice actually. So the middle of your palate, there's a good, there's crystal malt in this beer, and you can feel that there. It's got a big kind of slightly sweet and slightly bready malt character there. The roasted wheat malt is really sticking to the middle of the palate. You can feel the really dry, bitter and roasted character. It's almost a little bit smoky. It's not even a little bit like coffee like I was picking up in the aroma. It really is just a very dark, black, roasted character, and it sits there right in the middle of the tongue, and you can feel it trying to push its way out towards the edges of the palate where the hoppy flavours would be. But on top of that, you've got some sweeter chocolate malts, and you'll feel those just as you move a bit further out towards the edge of the tongue, and there's some sweet caramel as you go right down the middle of the palate. But the thing that's really interesting about this beer is the hoppy character. It's a very hop forward beer, this, which is you should expect that from Founders Brewing Company, of course, but this is actually, in comparison with the Bastard beers, this one is a lot more hop forward, so it's another interesting dimension for me. Only my third beer I've tried from these guys. But what you'll notice is that the grapefruity character in this actually mixes really quite well with that dark roasted coffee flavour. It's a very interesting flavour combination, but it really works. Yeah, the fruity character comes out just behind the very front curve of your tongue. If you just go behind there, there's a nice juicy bubble, a kind of oily bubble builds in the palate. That's where your kind of orangey citrus is coming out. It's definitely an orangey citrus in this beer, but you can pick up the tropical grapefruit flavours. That's from the Chinook hop, if I remember right. The grapefruit flavour comes from the Chinook hop in this. The Centennial is more of a kind of floral, aromatic hop, but those nice grapefruit tropical flavours work really well with the dark roasted malt. A bit of the orange doesn't mix so much. The orange is more of a juicy fruit character, but the tropical fruit mixes very well with that big, dry, bitter roasted character that lingers in the middle of the palate there. But as you move out towards the edge of the tongue, on the back corners of the palate, you can pick up just a little bit of the earthy character, and that builds a good bridge between the big roasted element in the middle and the kind of smoother aspects of the hop. I am noticing that the hop flavours in this are really quite smooth. There is a bit of floral aromaticity as you come forward, but the bitterness at the edge of the palate builds as you move into the aftertaste, and it becomes a bit dry down the sides of the tongue there. Around the front corners of the palate, you can feel a little bit of the floral aromaticity coming out of this beer, but as you go around the front of the tongue, it becomes a little bit smoother and a little bit more grassy. But when you actually have the flavour developing in the mouth, it comes across as being a lot smoother. So again, some really interesting dimensions to the flavour of this beer. There's a lot going on, so when you do try this beer, just take a bit of time and try and dissect the flavours and pick out all the different things that are going on in this beer. But what I can tell you is that this one is fully deserving of its 98 rating. As I said, there's some really interesting quirks to the flavour, but this one is for people who like a big, dark, roasted, almost smoky character to the beer, because it's really bitter and dry in the middle of the palate. It's a big malty bitterness, this one. Yeah, it's an interesting contrast, because usually the dry character, the dry hoppy character, is what you expect from American beers, but this one has a big malty bitterness there, which is a very, very interesting quirk to the beer. So I really would recommend that you try this. If you like a big, dark, roasted, malty beer, then this one is for you, but be prepared, it really is quite dry in the middle of the palate. So in terms of the mouthfeel, this one I would say definitely mid-bodied, maybe pushing the full-bodied boundary actually. Carbonation in this one is very smooth. It's actually got quite a big oily mouthfeel, and as I said, this one has a really good balance between the hops and the malts. A lot of the dry character is coming from the malt base. There's a bit of sweetness there too, but that really is pushed out the way in favour of this big, dry, dark, roasted character that just lingers in the middle of the tongue there, and that dominates the aftertaste. You do get a little bit of the fruity character and some of the smoother elements of the hops, but the aftertaste in this one really is quite dry, and as I say, dominated by that big, dark, roasted, almost coffee or smoky flavour that comes out of this beer. The hoppy characters have some nice sweetness, so there's a little bit of juiciness in the beer, but that doesn't really last into the aftertaste. The hop character is quite smooth generally, but there is a bit of dryness in the back corners of the palate, and that's where the earthy hop comes out from this one. So overall, I would say this is a really, really quite nice beer. As I say, if you like a big, dark, roasted beer, this one's for you. Has a little bit of alcohol warmth to it as well. As after you take a few sips of it, you can feel the alcohol warmth just coming out in the chest there. So it's a good winter beer, this one, but it's a good winter beer for people who like a little bit of the more juicy hop characters there. And the black IPA is obviously a very interesting fusion of different styles, and this one is no exception to that. So with this one, you're trying a black IPA from a brewery you know is pretty damn good, and I would recommend this to people who love big, dark, roasted beers. And some of the fruit character, like I say, with the grapefruit flavours mixes very well, so it really is worth checking out. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been really cool to do another one from Founders. As I say, a very, very good brewery, one of the more well-known ones from America. For those of us in Europe who enjoy American craft beer, really cool to visit them again. Hopefully next time I can try one of their IPAs or one of their lighter beer styles, but this is a really interesting one and a very good introduction to the Imperial Black IPA style. So if you do like the style, go and try this one, Dark Penance, maybe a limited edition, I'm not sure, but it is definitely worth picking up if you get the chance. A very interesting one that will test your palate, so do go and pick it up and check out Founders Brewery. Pretty much you can pick a style of beer you like from this brewery and you won't be disappointed. But as I say, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Let me know in the comment section below if you happen to have tried this beer before. I'd be really interested to hear from those of you guys in Michigan. Please do let me know your own thoughts on this beer and some of the other Michigan breweries to take a look at. In the meantime, until my next beer review, please subscribe to the channel and support me on the social media things. All your support would be muchly appreciated, but I thank you for watching this beer review, and hopefully I can see you on some of the other ones. Slàinte just now. Go and check out Founders Brewing Company.